So Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says he has great plans to grow the economy. He made the remarks during his State of the Province address yesterday. The Premier also added that the national government has donated 245 new cars to the SAPS, while 25% of the 30,000 police that just graduated will be deployed to Gauteng. Lesufi says over 7,000 young people who were previously unemployed are Gauteng crime prevention wardens. But let's get reaction on this. We're joined now by DA leader Msimanga. Solia, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think let's start with the obvious question, right? Your thoughts firstly on the chaos that we saw playing out before we were able to see the ending of that State of the Province address. I mean, what do you make of that? And then, of course, just overall how you rate that State of the Province address out of 10, if you will.
Naledi, good morning, and good morning to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, we cannot say that we are disappointed. We were expecting that we are going to be told absolutely nothing new. So we went in there knowing that this is what's going to be the case in any way. You're asking about the events before the delivery of the State of the Province. It was quite shocking that, first of all, we'll have a paramilitary grouping that will be allowed to be in the vicinity of the legislature after it's been declared. It was the first time in the history of the legislature that you have people with guns standing in front of lawmakers. That was a sign of intimidation. That was a sign of, maybe things to come. And we're very much wary of these kind of things. And I think this is something that, for me, smacks of desperation. Coming from Lesufi and his political party to then bring in such kind of acts to the legislature on such a day. But that is, by the way, I think going back on the issue of, what did we pick? We had things, I mean, if you can go and look at David Makura's State of the Province addresses and you listen to what Panyaza had to say last year and what he's saying this year, same old, same old. The only thing that he did this year is he behaved a little bit like Oprah, where he went and said, you got a job, everybody got a job. But the reality is that, the financial situation in Gauteng is not allowing for what he's made announcements on, to be carried out. And we have been asking for, quite a while, how is these programs budgeted for? In what line item can we find them? But more importantly, how are we going to be able to then sustain them? If you had actually watched the time when he made an announcement that the Panyaza will now be employed on a permanent basis, all of the Panyazas were actually surprised because this is were news to them yesterday. And again, the officials are saying to us that this is not, not even discussed with them. This was never even part of any discussion or even within the budget. So they are actually even surprised themselves where this is coming from. This smacks of desperation. This smacks of a leader who has run out of ideas and the only thing that is left for him is populism.
Well, one could argue, though, that he has found a solution to give jobs to some young people and that, of course, it's hard to separate the fact that your own party just this weekend launched your manifesto and you promised 2 million jobs, not really providing a clear plan on how you get there. So what was it that you would prefer to have heard then from the Premier on how to provide those jobs within Gauteng?
Well, Naledi, the difference here is that we're talking about things that you would have budgeted for, things that would have gone through the processes and would have actually then, formed part of a plan that would have actually been communicated. This is not following that. He's making announcements as he goes. And, like he made an announcement around the fight that he's taking with Eskom. We know what happened the last time when he did such. He goes and makes announcements, and then a couple of days later he comes and, apologizes and says that he was misunderstood in terms of what he said. He said the same thing. He's talking about, all the transformers that he's fixing. He's talking about, Eskom cutting power. But what he's not talking to is the hard question of, non-payment. And then what do we do with that? He's not talking to those. Even those transformers that have been, fixed and then people being reconnected. There's still a problem that municipalities are facing and Eskom is facing that, there is non-payment that is happening there. And therefore municipalities and Eskom continue to sit with a problem where, services is rendered, but then, they're not receiving. So these are the kind of things that, seems to be, more relevant and prevalent with Panyaza Lesufi's, State of the Province address.
All right, I want to go through some of the themes that he's covered, and I think one that certainly stands out for me is just how he's spent some time touching on the state of the CBD, particularly in Johannesburg. And of course, just a few days ago, a story coming out that you have an MMC, Qini Twaku, who's accused the Premier of stealing or taking credit for his Vuma Cam partnership idea of putting cameras into the CBD. But this is essentially what the Premier said. 450 more police to go into the Joburg CBD. Cameras on Small Street. Is this something that we can really see taking place?
Well, these are things that have been happening even before Panyaza Lesufi came into the picture. These were, the cameras that the municipalities have been doing that and have been dealing with it. I mean, you can go to Midval right now. I can tell you that they've been installing cameras since 2018. You go into Midval, as you drive into Midval, cameras are already there. I guess he's going to be taking credit for that at some particular point in time. And he's taking credit for a number of things that, had nothing to do with government at a provincial level. He's taking credit for Ford putting money there. He's taking credit for BMW putting money there. He's taking credit for a whole lot of range of things, including the private sector coming in and saying they're going to be assisting with bursaries. And he's saying credit that he is going to, be giving those bursaries to the learners. But, these we have seen, as I said earlier on, as more signs of desperation, more signs of trying to hide behind the fact that they haven't been able to do anything, and now claiming what the private sector is doing and what other spheres of government is doing and claiming it as its own victories. And this is something that, we are going to be exposing in the couple of days that will be coming.
Let's do this, Mr. Msimanga. I want to quickly listen back to what the Premier had to say about the issue of illegal miners in the province. Take a listen.
We have broken the backbone of Zamazamas in Gauteng, and all the soldiers have ensured that all those particular Zamazamas are displaced down there. I'm proud that almost 840 Zamazamas have been arrested and deported, and almost 2,000 illegal miners have been removed from our region of Boksburg, Dobsonville, Kagiso, Gauteng, Krugersdorp.
He says we've broken the back of Zamazamas in the province. I see you laughing as that clip was playing.
I can tell you that's an absolute lie. Last week, I was in Marhali City. I was in Krugersdorp. I can tell you the Zamazamas continue to do their work. I was in Angelo 2 weeks ago. The Zamazamas continue to do their work. There's no military there. There's nothing that, he's told us that is there. We can actually, I challenge you, go and talk to these community members and tell me if they tell you that they are seeing the presence of the military there. But what is very interesting is this, Naledi. Years ago, when we started mentioning the introduction of or the intention to ensure that we call on the introduction of the military, Panyaza Lesufi we are against saying that we have apartheid mentality and we want to bring back, military where police should be doing their work and where the communities must get involved. Today he comes and makes an announcement as if, this is something that was never really brought to their attention, which I find very interesting that this would be coming from him and he would be celebrating it, but it doesn't exist in anywhere.
I'm trying to pack in a lot in a very short period of time here. So, another big problem for Gauteng is 700 informal settlements in this very small province of ours, and the Premier promising yesterday that he sees the future looking like us eradicating shacks in Gauteng. He talks about 1,000 hectares that have been bought by government for people to build their own homes. Feasible and plausible?
Well, yet another of those things that we in 2014, I personally, during the State of the Nation, State of the Province in 2014, I said to that end at that time, because the backlog was a million at that time of houses, and the province was only building about 28,000 or 30,000 units a year. And I said, you will not be able to then catch up. What you can then do is to make sure that we formalize services in these areas. We formalize some of these areas by building roads, by ensuring that there is water and toilets, that we make sure that there is actually meters, electricity that goes in there. But more importantly, be able to then give people, the title to the pieces of land that they will be getting. And then I was ridiculed at that point in time. In fact, Panyaza told me that, we don't see black people being owners. We don't see black people owning houses. They will build houses for black people. Fast forward 10 years later, he's bringing in the same thing while the backlog has now increased, while there's more and more informal settlements that are growing, which then creates a problem about where do we now get these pieces of land, which then tells us another problem is on the way, where we know that this government, all that it does is to then go and tip off its comrades and friends to go and buy pieces of land cheaply, and then 3 or 4 days later, sell that same piece of land at 4 or 5 times the price, to government. And this is what we know that is going to be coming our way. And we're not very much impressed while we have told them this is going to be coming your way. And indeed, not much was done at that point in time. And now there is pressure. We are going to see a lot of corruption now creeping in. Luckily, they don't have long. They only have a couple of months and they will be out of here. We can then get on with the program of fixing government.
All right. Very confident of you, but we do appreciate your time. Msimanga, the DA Gauteng leader, speaking to us.